Good morning or good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. It's about using tools to build relationships with architects, designers, and builders, which is a key thing. It cannot be overemphasized enough how important it is to build meaningful relationships with these folks. Personal referrals from past clients is awesome, but the key to consistent referrals is architect, designer, and builder relationships. So I'm going to share some tips here. We're going to make this a part one. We're going to talk about two key things today. HTA certification itself as a standard and as a differentiator. And then second, we're talking about the budget calculator and how these three integrators use it. Part two, we'll get into some other tools later on, such as the HTA Design Partner designation. We're not going to get into that today, nor are we going to get into the Project Technology Assessment form, but we'll have other webinars about that in the future because those are extremely powerful tools as well. Too much to cram into one morning. So this is about, instead of me preaching about what HTA is, you're going to hear real world experiences from integrators, how it's working for them. And one of our integrators here, Zack, this is a conversation we had about a month ago. He was entering Q4 with $3.2 million of closed business, and he's only been working at the firm he's at now as a salesperson. This is his second full year. So he comes into this market on the high end side of things as a new face, and to do $3.2 million a year, or not even a year, in 3/4 of a year is mighty impressive. And Zack credits HTA tools and his differentiation to getting into this league this quickly. So that's massively impressive. And he's in, just to kind of steal thunder a little bit, he's in the Los Angeles market, and there are a handful of high-end integrators that have been in this market for a long time. And he's in this market now, competing and beating a lot of these long-time integrators that using these tools. So they work. It's not theory. Um, Before we get into the nitty-gritty, I wanted just to share or to thank our sponsors that help HTA as well put on things like this. We have what's called supporting brands, and these are our platinum supporting brands. These are all names that you know, or most of them you know. And also on gold supporters are here, and these are silver supporters here. So these are a lot of these brands are ones that you know that have invested in you, and they are all about quality, setting the standard that HTA does, and helping you, the best dealers out there, win business away from those trunk slammers and those crummy dealers out there that are messing up the market. And how you could see what these brands do, if you go up to our top level nav and you click on resource guide, this is our category based guide. So you could see, for example, lighting resources in here, including lighting designers like JKM and Light Can Help You. And it's all category based. So I wanted to share that with you. We want to thank those sponsors. And also, if you have questions, we want to open up some time at the end for some Q&A. So if you have any questions, you could put them in here. We'll try to get to that at the end and answer some of those questions. When you were registering, we asked you in there, what sales challenges are you experiencing? And we've had 12 responses. We won't be able to get to all of them today. I'll respond offline to some of these that we're going to go maybe not into what we're talking about today, but 7 of those 12 questions, or I should say half, 6 of those 12 questions, and maybe this half of them, or the 7th one, is about pricing. So a lot, you're going to like what you hear today about pricing or selling lighting. I'll read some of them. Closing lighting fixture projects, that's kind of related to pricing. Helping customers understand required scope and system design, pricing in general. Even when the scope of work is clear, cost kills the deal and they do not get a second chance. Or just putting budget and price in there. So we'll be talking about some of those. So now let's get into some key introductions right here now. And Constantinos, please say hello and introduce yourself and the types of projects you do in your market and the name of your company.
Hey, I'm Constantinos with frayednot in Cranford, New Jersey. We basically work in mostly anything from 5,000 to 10,000 square foot homes. That's pretty much the general speak of it. And all pretty close to the same targeted area. This way we can hop around relatively easily, from home to home if we need to project if we need to. We're a small company, so uh, that allows us to not have to have uh, a multitude of guys, multiple trucks running around servicing areas that are just too far if there's an issue and we need to get to it. So yeah.
Keep the service tight. Great. Jason,
Hi, Jason, Automated Living out of Louisville, Kentucky. We're a full-blown integration firm. We handle everything from customers' audio, video, security, surveillance. We've recently jumped into the lighting design world, and we have a solar department as well. So we've got our hands in a lot. We deal with a lot on a lot of the projects. So yeah, that's us. But yeah, Louisville Metro is kind of our area.
thank you. And Zach,
Zack Fagan, pardon me, TSI Luxury Technology, the vice president there. We're about 30 employees, been in business about 30 years. The Southern California market from Santa Barbara, Montecito down to Santa Monica, Beverly Hills, Beverly Park, West Hollywood is our primary market. We really focus on the kind of higher end of the luxury market here. Average home, about 25 million, anywhere from 10, 15,000 square feet up to, 40 or 50,000. There's some just giant properties that are going up here. Full service technology company. So we do everything from light fixtures, lighting control, shades, access control, surveillance, AV network, of course, the whole kit and caboodle. So um, I really focus on connecting with, kind of elite architects, designers, and general contractors in town, and just providing as much information to them as possible to, gain the trust to work on those types of projects.
thank you. Thanks for the introduction on there. So three different markets, and um, there you got architects, designers, and builders, three key industry partner referrals. And as you know, or just to kind of explain this up front, because you might not know this if you only know your market, who the players are in a given market sometimes shifts. Some areas are real builder heavy, some are real architect heavy, some are real interior designer heavy. So if you probably know that about your market. If you don't, you might find out if you're, banging your head into the wall too much with one of these and not getting anywhere. Try to find out who's really driving these projects. It might be the architect, it might be the builder or a design build firm too. So your mileage may vary. And so now we're going to move into phase one. Let's call it tool number one, and that's the certification itself. Now, and speaking in full transparency, because most of the folks on our call are HTA certified, this is the most powerful tool there is to be certified, but probably one of the most underutilized one. And why I say that is because this was built, just a kind of quick review, HTA certification was built because 90% of this industry is bad, right? We could all probably agree that 90% of this industry is not up to snuff. If you're in that top 10%, you really care about this industry, realize that the lower 90% are saying they have the best service and they have the best brands. And it's not true, but they're saying the same thing that the best integrators are. How are you going to differentiate yourself in a third party legitimate way where instead of just claiming you're better, you can prove it? That's what we are. So we're like the Michelin stars or the GIA or EGL rating system for diamonds. It's a client could go to a link, read about it. Even if it's them, you sending them to that link, it's legit standard. It's very powerful. That is the biggest differentiator. And the integrators that use the HTA elevator pitch, which we help with, and the creation of, we'll put a link to that, by the way, when we record this. So everyone's going to get a recording. We won't share that now, but we'll share some sample elevator pitches that really help set that standard and raise that bar because clients don't know this, that our industry is kind of a mess. You know it, but let them know it in a way instead of saying like everybody else, oh, we're the best, trust us. You could say, hey, there is a standard, we meet it, here it is, right? So with that out of the way, Constantinos, you have a totally different way. I don't know any other integrator out there that brings up HTA like you. It's totally unique. So please tell us how and why you bring up HTA first in the conversation, even before you talk about your own company. Why do you do that?
So, I mean, what you find out with people is that that attention span just disappears after they get what they want out of the conversation. So the only way for us to be able to talk about things that we want to get across so they can understand they exist, so they know that there's differences from one versus the next, is to I lead with the HTA. That's what I start with. We meet, we talk, we get a quick acquaintance, and then the first thing we start to talk about is, we're HTA certified as an association, and we go on and explain everything about it, followed by what our company does, some of the recognition we've had, some of the publication we had, just to give them a little piece of kind of where we sit. And then eventually we get to talking about the project. And then once we finally get to talking about the project, that's going to get to the point where they finally get to what they want to hear about. So that's when they're listening the most. But at least in the beginning, that attention is still there, versus if I started talking about the project from the beginning, it's happened in the past where you talk about the project from the beginning, and once that client gets everything they feel they needed to get, even if they haven't gotten it really all yet, that immediate, okay, so we're good here, I got to run. And they're halfway out the project, running out the door. So it started to make more sense for us to start the other way and go in reverse. And then when we're all said and done, we follow up with an email after that meet. And the first thing in that email is linkage, link to the HTA website again, link to budget calculator that we talk about at the end of our conversation. So we start with the HTA, we talk about ourselves, we talk about the project, we end with the budget calculator, and then we lead with the budget calculator and the HTA links in the emails. So then this way there's like a little bit of a flow there.
Yeah, that's cool. So that's great. And I'll share real quick a screen so you know what link that he's talking about. This is a page on our site called HTA Certification Defined. And this is the regular version on our site. It's going to be in, I will send you the link to this in the chat here so you could grab it. And for those who've been catching up with our newsletters, we have a headless version of this that you could link to from your page. So take your HTA certified logo, you make it link to the page, but the link we give you removes for the HTA header and footer down here. And it also removes this click here to find HTA certified installer. So it's made for you to link to. That's just tells the client what the standard is and why it makes you different. So that is the page that he's referring to, and I'm going to send that now in chat. So another thing that you do, which is totally unique, but I love it, explain how you encourage clients to speak to another HTA certified firm and what happens you do after that. I've never seen anybody say, hey, thanks for talking to me. You should talk to these other folks too.
So we do that also, only because we come as a referral every single time, and the homeowner never really knows what else there is, right? So the HTA kind of built a lot of confidence for us. So having that, on our backs makes us feel a lot more confident when being able to talk to someone about the space that we're going to work in. So the confidence puts us in a spot where we can just tell them, listen, if at the end of the day, it's all relationship. If they're not going to feel comfortable with any of us in the home, if the kids don't feel comfortable with us in the home, the dogs don't like us, there's something about us that they don't like, they should have the option, right, to go and find another firm that they're going to feel comfortable with. It really comes down to getting that space to be right for that space more so than anything else. Not us definitely having to have the job if they're going to hate us the entire process and fast forward after that process. We're going to service it afterwards. So that relationship is forever. It just never, we don't go away. That's a technology marriage that we're stuck with, right? So the concept there is to really be sure we want to work with them. If they're not going to be able to know if they want to work with us or us with them until they interview another firm. And the only way to interview another firm, it's got to be another HTA firm. So it can't just be Joe's AV who just picked up a pickup truck and threw a magnet on the side of his truck, and he's the guy in town that supposedly does integration systems, right? So for us, we do it that way. We kind of give the customer that level of freedom, and for us, it's never failed. We've never any customer that we've ever spoken with or prospect, and we given them that option, we always end up on the job. So at some point, obviously, it's definitely us that they ended up liking. I don't know. Could have been the confidence level. Could have been anything about what we were talking about. Could have been that we gave them the freedom, and they might have just said, you know what, these guys were just way confident. They gave us all the freedom in the world. They came super highly recommended. They are certified under this that they read about now through the email, right? And they could turn around and say, you know what, I don't have time to go interview another firm. These guys are it, right? They're not gonna do anything, half, right? We're gonna go all the way. So they kind of get, that vibe happens. You could feel that with a client right off the bat. So relationship in the end with the HTA together and the confidence makes it a really nice piece for us. It's been super successful.
Yeah, thanks. I think there's a psychology of the confidence you picked up on, right? There's like, hey, it's your job to lose, first of all, right? When someone gives you a referral, you're in first place. You want to build upon that foundation and build more trust factors, and you just did that. You built a trust factor, and then to show the confidence, like, hey, you should maybe even talk to another integrator. Like, dang, this guy really is.
We don't look at the job as we have to get the job, right? The work just seems to come, right? Once the reputation is there, the work comes. The referral rates are there. The circles of people are there. They talk to each other, and you build that reputation. So it's never, I have to get this job because the company needs this job. We're never feeling like that's the position. We're always feeling like, are we going to be able to do justice for this particular location? This is what we need to do. How do we get justice for the location? And the only way to do that is that client has to really feel comfortable with the firm that they're picking to be able to go forward with that relationship. The relationship is the number one piece of it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks. Zach, I'm going to turn attention to you. You mentioned, again, you're in a market that I know very well because I was an integrator 16 years in this market. And there's a lot of, every integrator knows who the top architects and designers and builders are, right? It's a very well-known group of people, yet you've come in there and you've been able to get business from these folks in an impressive way. So you mentioned when a client mentions a competitor or even an architect or says, well, why should I work with you? I'm using, this guy. You use HTA at that. So share how you've positioned yourself that way.
Sure. Well, many times if, one of our competitors or another, firm in town is mentioned, well, we usually use these guys, I'll just ask the question, are they HTA certified? And if so, are they certified at the state level? That's the highest tier that you can get with the HTA. And, we're state certified. So that's an important question to ask because now I'm differentiating myself from the others in a way that is important as it relates to the type of project. Typically, the projects that we're going for are very sophisticated designs. Many of them are very large. In some cases, they're the size of small hotels. And when you have a small firm that's got maybe 5 or 6 guys and they're gunning for, a 25,000 square foot build, it's like we need to think as stakeholders realistically about this. Can this firm really handle this project? The level of sophistication and care and time and effort, expertise that may be needed in order to complete this project may be out of the wheelhouse of that firm. And, do they have the experience with the technology that is going to be, required, the level of integration that's needed, the sophistication in, the programming resources that may be needed. There could be all kinds of very complicated subsystems that we need to integrate with, commercial level stuff that, a smaller firm may not be familiar with. So that HTA estate certification definitely sets us apart right away. So that's definitely one of the things that I bring up with these stakeholders. To kind of draw that line. First of all, absolutely.
And I'll insert a point here because some of you might be thinking, well, doesn't that only matter if that architect that Zach's talking to knows what HTA certification is? And the answer to that is no, it doesn't. And to give you proof, uh, this is like a big challenge out there is integrators think that HTA or CEDIA has to be a household name for it to matter, and that's absolutely not the case. And I could prove that. A couple ways. One of them, of all the brands that you sell that you love, how many of them do your clients know of the name of? Count them on less than one hand, right? Sony, Samsung, it doesn't matter. You're still selling these brands that they don't know. But the bigger issue is ask yourself, how did you find out about the standard like a GIA or EGL certification? That's not quite a household name. If you don't know what I'm talking about, do yourself a favor. On the way home today, go buy a jeweler and say you want to buy a diamond ring or some diamond earrings for your wife or girlfriend, husband, whatever. And they'll pretty quickly start talking about EGL or GIA rated diamonds. And if you don't know what it is, say, what does that mean? And they'll give you a little elevator pitch. When you hear the elevator pitch, 99% chance you're probably going to buy one of those rated diamonds, even though you didn't know about it before. And I asked this of folks like, where did you hear about GIA or EGL? Well, the jeweler. And when you heard it, did you trust it? Yeah. Same analogy, right? Buying expensive diamonds is a bit of a niche, a little more obviously popular. More people are buying diamonds overall in the world than there are putting in high-end systems in their home. But the point's there. It's a defined standard. The jeweler points you to a website. You can read the standard, makes sense. It's logical. It's a third-party vetting system. That's what you have. So going back to Zach, and they say, well, what's HTA? Then Zach could follow up with the elevator pitch and send him a link to that page that we showed. And it's self-explanatory. At that point, boom, drop the mic. To share an experience, there's an integrator down in Southern California, Jason of Cantera. Some of you might know who this firm is. And he successfully didn't have to value engineer a job that was a very high-end job. Builder brought him in. Client went out, got some lowball bid. Builder comes back to Jason. Jason, I want you to win this project. Sharpen your pencil. You've all been there, right? Like, bring your price down. I don't want you to lose it to this guy. I don't know who this guy is, but the client went out and got him. And then Jason's story was, well, are they HTA certified at the estate level? And Builder's like, what are you talking about? Doesn't know what it means. Jason knew he didn't know what it means. Then he went in, kind of like Zach. Are they HTA certified estate? Zach did the same thing as Jason. And then when he gave him the elevator pitch, similar to Zach, Jason said, well, this proves that I'm certified to do projects of this caliber. And this other company, should they even be allowed to put a proposal in a house of this complication? That's defensible. So just another story to kind of go along with Zach and why HTA certification does not have to be a household name that everybody knows for it to have any value. You can see it already works. So far, before we move on to another topic, you can see that leveraging HTA certification can make you more confident. It's doing that with both Zach and Constantinos and their whole approach. And it gives a client a way to compare other, companies that are in that small world if they should go out and want to get a secondary quote, because some clients are just going to do that. Then you might as well make it a fair fight, right? Someone else that's good, not some lowballer. And it opens also the door to share the standard to, with architects, designers, and builders. Bring that up as a differentiator. So let's go into what is become a super popular tool is the budget calculator. And those, you probably have seen it. I'll just do a quick screen share if not. And for those of you that haven't played with it in a while, it does have lighting fixtures on it now. That's one of the questions. So it looks like this, and it's on our site here. It's very simple, 17 basic questions. And if you have this embedded on your site or you link out to it to our site from your site, there is a code that you probably know tracks it. We know it came from you. And when you log into your dashboard as an HTA integrator, you can see every budget ever created with that calculator. So even if they don't send you the results from the calculator, they're stored, and you could log in and say, hey, I'm working on that 7,800 square foot house. I wonder if they built a budget. Log in. Hey, there it is. There's a 7,800 square foot house, and here's all the questions they answered. So that's there. That data is there. So let's get into some of the details on there. Jason, you lead with it. You mentioned it's one of your lead-in tools. So please, explain how you lead with it and how you worked it into your process.
Yeah, so a lot of I mean, we have a lot of referral customers as well. Referral customers, like you said, I mean, those are a lot easier to close, but we do also work with a lot of different builders that do give their customers the ability to shop around between few different integration firms. The first thing that we always have all of our builders and architects do is actually present that to their clients in a meeting, or at least whenever they forward that client to us. We present the calculator to that client. The reason we do it is, one, we want to give the customer the ability to kind of go and play around and see by moving categories around or selecting different things, what that would do to their budget on a project. It also kind of helps us out because we don't do a discovery meeting until that's completed. So what that does is that actually sets us up when we go into that discovery meetings. These are key areas that the customers already specified that they're very interested in. Another point of that too is it really knocks out sticker shock. Most of us, coming from way back, right? We've always been just giving away designs for free. We're quoting stuff. We put it in front of the client. They're like, "Holy crap, that's a lot of money. We'll call you back." And that's a maybe. They may call you
It's a
back, they may
ghost.
not.
It's a ghost, right? A lot of
Exactly.
those. Yeah.
So with that, we've kind of put that buffer in front of them. They're like, all right, well, we kind of have an idea where we're going to be at now. So when we present our numbers, it's less of a shock at that point. Now that they've kind of had that expectation set in front of them. Another part of it, the reason we do this as well, is we do charge design fees. Um, we charge design fees anything above 20K. If the project's 20K or less, it's so easy for us to design something on that. We really don't hit them with a design fee. Anything above that, we do charge a design fee, and it is based on that calculator. So whenever a customer submits one, we get it back. We charge a percentage of that design fee. Um, Submit the design to the customer. Hopefully, from everything from them completing that, our discovery meeting, sticker shock buffer, most of the time we're closing the deal just due to following those steps. So that's how we kind of lead with it.
That's awesome. And could you share how you use the calculator to set your design fee?
Absolutely. So when we get the budget calculator back from the client, and then this is unless something drastic changes in the discovery meeting. If it's kind of on par with what they completed on the calculator, we charge a 3% design fee based on the lowest number of the budget calculator. Most of our projects come in within that window of where they're going to be at on the lower side. If we do go to our discovery meeting and we see that client's really creeping up a whole lot, then we're going to adjust accordingly before we send over the design contract. But yeah, we charge a 3% of the lower portion of the design or the budget calculator, I should say.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that because this is a question that we hear. Jeff and I at HTA, we hear this quite a bit. We're big preachers of charging for design and engineering. That really professionalizes our industry. For you folks that are listening in today and you're thinking about charging for design or wondering what others do, here's a great tip to do that because doing it on square footage alone could get you in trouble, right? Because it could be too high or too low. But this is based on scope, right? They're filling out the scope and it's variable. So charging it based on the design fee is just another. It's easy. You could just explain that, right, to a client up front or, once you go through that discovery process. So that's a great way to use it. And going back to your sticker shock thing, Jason, it's I love that fact that you do that. The sticker shock's there, but what you're doing is deflecting it away from you. You're putting it on an association. You're not the bad guy. The HTA is the bad guy at this point. But let the HTA be the bad guy because it's an association that's not selling them anything. So that's where its neutrality comes, and the client tends to believe that as fact and true, good information, which it is. And that's why that when it's embedded in your calculator, which by the way, all three of our panelists today have the calculator embedded in their own site as well, it still says powered by the Home Technology Association because we want to let that person on your site know that this is coming from a neutral tool. This is not Jason's or Zach's or Constantino's personal opinion, because personal opinion, then they're going to start shopping again. But they'll tend to shop around less once they know what that range is because they've been adequately educated. So really cool. So Zach, you the ROM. Explain what ROM is to those that might not know and how you've been using this successfully with builders and how builders are reacting to it.
Sure. So the HTA budget calculator is going to produce a low and a high range for budgetary purposes, right? Based on all those 17 inputs that you put in. Once you make all those selections, it kind of does it in real time, of course, but when you're done, you get to the bottom, you have all the inputs in there, you're going to have a low and a high range. And typically projects are going to land somewhere in between those, right? It's rare that the customer is going to decide, well, let's do way less than the low or way more than the high. So right up the middle of the road is a really good number to start with. And I like using ROM, that's rough order of magnitude, right? So it's a term that a lot of the stakeholders that I work with in this market are familiar with and that use. And I like saying that better than ballpark, right? Because ballpark sounds really, really general, but ROM, is a familiar term. But the budget calculator will output a really good ROM number based on real inputs. And what I found is many of the stakeholders that come to me for a number, they say, Zach, I heard you guys were the best. We want you on the project. Okay, give me a quote. Well, the problem is my engineering resources are, expensive, and their time is so valuable that I can't just do, a proposal for every single customer that comes along. And many times these builders don't necessarily have the job in the first place. They're in pre-con. So they may be getting paid for pre-con, and the equivalent for us is design service agreement, right? If you want us to design the whole project for you and give you a detailed quote with a full bill of materials, well, yeah, sure, I can do that, but I don't really have the time to do that. So I go to the budget calculator every time in that case. And I just say to that builder right there, give me some inputs, right? We just start going through it together. Either we do it on the phone or we do it, on a Zoom call setting like this where I'm sharing my screen and they're literally seeing me putting the inputs there. How many window treatments do we need? Dual roller, single roller? How much, integration do you want to do? You want one app for everything or multiple apps? How many areas of fancy audio? How much just background? What level of performance on the theater, et cetera? And in a few minutes, we get to the bottom and it's like 250 to 475,000. There's your range, man. I send it to them. They get an email with a link to the calculator in it, and they've got a number to plug into their budget. Because that's really all they're asking for, right? That's really, well, they may be asking for a full quote, but I'm not going to give it to them. I'm just going to give them the number that they really want. They plug that into their budget and they're moving on to, okay, now I'm calling the stone guy and I'm calling, to get numbers on caissons or whatever the rest of their budget that needs to be filled out. So I found this to be a really good resource. And I was telling Josh offline earlier, I can attribute $750,000 of the business I closed this year to the calculator, where it was an integral part in closing those deals. Because like we've said before, it really kind of made the budget portion, independent. It's like, this isn't a D-Tools proposal that I did for you here where I'm picking specific products because of my margin on that product line, for instance. This is an independent organization. This is an industry standard calculator. And this is what it's telling you based on the inputs, the guardrails that you gave me. So, if you don't want to spend 475 grand, well, then treat maybe 10 windows instead of 30, or go with a single roller instead of dual, or, go with less fancier lighting or whatever the thing is. But I found it to be a really, really good way of getting that rough order of magnitude number. So the client, stakeholder, whoever's calling has an idea of what the technology lift is going to be. Many times they're surprised, but prices have gone up on nearly everything. So at this point, homes in this market are, $2,000 a square foot. It just is what it is. It's insane, but we need to give clients realistic numbers, and the only way to give them a realistic number is to put in some input. And again, this calculator is the fastest way that I found to do it, and I rely on it regularly in interactions all the time.
Thanks. And it trains them to know where to get accurate numbers, because I know a challenge all of you deal with. I've seen this to be universal, that a builder or somebody brings a proposal to you and say, okay, time to meet the client. And there's a budget number in there that's like, that doesn't even cover the pre-wire. And you want the whole house for this? Like, put this in here, right? This is,
Yeah.
Maybe the builder lowballed it or whatever to win the client over, but you're helping the builder by using the calculator and then even referencing it, right? So the builder, it's defensible to the builder, to the client, and say, hey, I put together, or in this case, Zach at DSI helped me put together this budget. Here's the output of it, the email that has all the questions. And hey, you can play with it, to the prospective client and adjust it accordingly. But it's defensible because the builder could just say, well, that's what the standard is, right? And all of you should know that if you're dealing with builders primarily, you could tell them this calculator is referenced on the NAHB's website, National Association of Home Builders website. If you think that's important to you and your marketing, you need that link, I'll send it to you. But they have their own coded link, because some of the tech articles on their website educating custom builders references as like a boilerplate closing paragraph that tells them to use the budget calculator. So some of them are doing that already. So it's defensible, and that's a cool way to use it, Zach. And it's not a blow off. It's a way to save your bacon and engineering time, and kind of think about it for a minute. It kind of makes you look desperate when a builder will just give you a couple sentences of vagueness, and then you spend days of engineering time to put together a proposal that is random thoughts from some builder that doesn't even really know what the client wants, right? This kind of forces them to think it through a little bit. Or in the case of Jason, that's part of his scope, right? His process to have them fill it out so he knows what the scope is. Very cool.
And Josh, too, like I'm not sure that it was mentioned, but literally, I mean, this is really none of us want to see somebody come to our office and we not get the job unless we just don't feel like they're a customer we want to work with. But I mean, this clears out a lot of those window shoppers. Like literally, we'll have somebody fill this out and they'll be like, yeah, this is just not in our budget. Okay, fair. We're probably not the firm for you. That's it.
Yeah. Know that up front, right? Instead of go through the motions and spend all that time to find that out. So, yep, key point. Constantinos, you mentioned something too that I thought was a unique take, with kind of like a psychology of taking high net worth clients and giving them a little bit of control with using the calculator. So I liked your whole idea on the psychology of that too. Please share your experience with that.
Yeah, from the client perspective, at certain levels, these guys are used to being the go-to, right? They're the boss, right? To some degree. And if we're putting a project together, we're designing it, we're building it, designing, build, figuring out what we're going to do for them. And we'll get that out to them. They'll get back to us and we'll give them the calculator link in the beginning, and they'll get on the calculator and we give them that bit of freedom, right? Use the calculator, figure this out after we give them the quote, and they'll come back and tell us, well, we don't necessarily want this or necessarily want that or necessarily want this. And it never really has anything to do with, I think, cost, because It just gets changed or moved around, basically, is what happens in the end. But from their perspective, they redesigned that system. They redesigned that build because they were able to see it in front of their face, lay it out, and put it together, and then call me and tell me this is what we want to end up doing. But it still has to be a whole, right, at the end of it. So from the perspective of using it as like a tool for like the psyche in a sense, that customer feels like they have a lot more control over the project when they're able to do something like the budget calculator in front of their face without us steering them in any way from an independent website that has nothing to do with anything else. So they feel pretty comfortable at that point.
Yeah, that's good. Giving them some empowerment, right? And that, so,
Empowerment, right? And the trust game changes. You know what I mean? Like they feel from what we see, it seems like the customer feels like there's a lot more room for them to feel like they can trust us because we're handing off something that we can say, well, you have no experience in this. Leave it up to the experts, right? When you hear that on job sites from guys that say that, and I've been doing this for 30 years. The last thing anybody wants to hear is that I've been doing this 30 years. I'm the expert. Leave it up to me. That's a great way to say something to someone if you probably want to rub them the wrong way, right? Because you're insulting their intelligence to some level. So in this sense, we're handing it off to them where they're going to feel like, we're not saying that we are way smarter than you when it comes to this. You could put this together as well. And they do feel great about that at the end. And trust, again, it's trust and relationship, right? We're in such a unique space when it comes to this world, right? The integration world relative to like wallpaper guys, right? Like high-end guys, like a wallpaper guy we have a lot of wallpaper in our area, right? Paper hangers, treatments, fabrics and all that. And these guys have access to the locations. And the space that we're in is so unique because you have a tradesman like a plumber or electrician or any other trade that comes into the home. We're given full access to the entire space, whether it's 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 square feet. We need access to the entire thing, no matter what. The master closets, the master bath, right? The master toilet, anything we need access to, we have to be able to have free run of the home. Whereas like a paper hanger, he's going to come in and he's going to go straight to the location he's given access to. That's where he's directed. They set up and they do what they do. So the trust in that sense is like we're like the exception to like the firewall rules, right? And everybody else is just like a port forward, right? They get forwarded to the location they need to work at, and we're the exception, and we have free run of the entire home, and we could do whatever we need to do, right? So it's just this weird space, I think, that we're in on the high end side of what we do in the homes that we're in. You get to see how this kind of plays out most of the time, and a lot of it is really relationship, trust, right? When you start to see that there's a customer that you've known for a decade and they're building their net wealth, right? And they're climbing that ladder. And then at some point, the game changed because now you're getting introduced to a property manager, to security team, to finance people that are paying their bills for them, right? The game changes, right? So they go from what their position was to where they are now. But then you get that text. Well, hey, Constantine, if you ever need anything, just text me direct. If you need access, you could just get in there directly, right? So that exception again, that trust, that relationship, all of that, even, so as an example, right, with the budget calculator and that customer having that freedom to do what they want to do, lets them feel like we're way more transparent with everything that we're doing to try to build that trust from the beginning with that piece right from the beginning. Because then later, like I said, we're the exception to that firewall. We're in there no matter what.
I like your IT network analogy there. Yeah, they're into the industry.
I think weird sometimes.
Yeah. No, it works. But you bring up a key point. This is all about trust and buying signals. But yeah, trust and credibility. That's what I was looking for. Trust and credibility are the two things that this can help you with. And it is so important, like you said, because it is a very personal relationship. When I'm talking to interior designers and architects and builders, I explain the relationship an integrator has with their client is closest to the interior designer client relationship. And I say the reason why is because of this. They're going to know everything about the house, the dogs, the kids, everything, their names, how they live, how they entertain. And just like the interior designer is often brought back to freshen up certain rooms in time, to bring it up to, modern trends. So are you.
Right.
Technology goes stale. Technology needs to be fixed and worked on. That integrator is part of that. So building that, but talking about that up front and the trust and credibility factors, this is why HTA was built, is to take, instead of saying, trust me, trust me, trust me, yes, talk about all the great things that you've done, that you should, but talk about the third party validation you have because that's hard to get and so few have it, right? So
Yeah,
that's how you really get that leg up. Constantino, share the story that related to this trust that you mentioned just happened recently with an architect that put you on their preferred vendor list. That you were kind of working in a parallel universe for a while until you bumped into them, and what happened?
yeah, we've been working in parallel. I mean, on dozens of projects and dozens over the course of years. And we know the firm. I mean, they're the go-to, right? Anytime we meet a client and it's like, well, who's the architect? And right away, like their response is so, it's just interesting how people actually like, regard certain firms, right? And they'll turn and say, well, so and so. I mean, who else, right? They'll say it just like that, as if you expected something less for this build, right? So it's an interesting thing that goes on for so many projects, but we just never, those plans are drawn already, and we're getting them at that point from the client because we're a referral to the client most of the time. So that architect happened to pop in at some point on that particular project, and I happened to be there. So I introduced myself, spoke to that partner of that firm, and introduced myself and everything that we've done across the board for 20 projects, right? In the past 4 years, for example, 5 years. And every single one of them, they were the ones who drew it. And they've never known that, right? And that was an instant position for me to be able to talk about a lot of things that I wanted to be able to get across to a firm like that. That was a perfect example of those are the go-to. We're just integrators. They don't need to know who we are, but they kind of do at this point because the circles that we're in are all the same type of net, wealth type of people. So build to build to build, if it's coming down from them, I wanted them to know who we were. So that introduction was important. We talked about exactly this. And this is the reason this is on our jackets and shirts and so on, is because when someone like that comes into the project, I can easily bring this up because I can just point and say, another big deal about our company is that we're certified. It's a big deal when we're certified. And then we start to explain the whole concept. And then at that point, that person went from being the key firm, and I'm sure they have other integrators that they were probably handing projects to. I wouldn't have a clue where they were, what locations they are, but at least now I was first and foremost for them. So that I want to say that next afternoon, I think it was the next day afternoon, I got a call from the secretary at the firm, and they wanted every piece of information from us. They wanted, an email from us with what we send to clients. They wanted a lot of info, and they wanted to put us on their preferred vendors list. So that was a big deal. And I don't think that would have really transpired the way it did without having this piece of it as really the foundation to it, because that just made us way more credible than any other firm I'm sure that they were going to have on their list to deal with at that point. That's what it felt like. So that was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that's a great story. Something I've asked all of you on phone calls, if you've spoken with me, is when you meet a new designer, builder, architect, trade partner, let's call them trade partners. When you meet a new trade partner, do you get the vibe that you're guilty until proven innocent? And everyone kind of chuckles, yeah. Like, it's sad, but it's true, right? Because again, the whole why the HTA exists. If this industry were so full of professionals that are doing awesome jobs, and there would be no need for HTA, zero. Why? But because 90% of this industry isn't good, that's why we're here to help defend that 10%. So you could differentiate yourself from that 90%, right? So what happened with what Constantinos did is, instead of saying, trust me, we're better, like everybody does, you can say, hey, we have the standard. It makes sense, right? You give them kind of the elevator pitch, defends yourself, and now you can show yourself as different.
We
And
never use the trust me, trust us. Never. I don't think that ever comes out of that. And I never even spoke those words to a client. You got trust us. We're going to be better. Trust me. I've been doing this a long. None of that.
yeah.
It's always talking about other things And those other things are what are going to shed light on us to be, the center of that.
The trust and credibility factors. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Great. We got about 10 more minutes, and I wanted to open this up to any of the audience. If there's any questions that you have, uh, please drop them in chat, if directed for any or all of us. So, while you're thinking through something you might have, I'm going to look through this list of some of the questions that came in through registration. Um, Talking about budget and price, I think we've kind of discussed about that, right? Using the calculator is a great way to do that. Let's see. Any of you have any input on getting past the gatekeeper to reach the decision maker?
That's the age-old challenge right there, is getting to the person that actually makes the decisions. In my experience, many times I'll have a builder, maybe a very sophisticated builder, come to me and say, "Here's what we need. Give me a quote for this." Okay. And then we give them that quote. And when we finally do get to talk to the actual homeowner, who's the real decision maker, they go, "What is all this? This isn't what I want." I went through this just a week ago, where the builder gave me the scope of work. I did exactly what he asked. And then when I sat in the meeting with the homeowner and the builder and the interior designer and the architect, we're all in the same room together. The homeowner looked me right in the face and said, "Thank you very much. And I appreciate the work that you did to kind of get here, but this isn't what I want. I want top quality audio in these areas." I'm like, "Okay, no problem." So $80,000 change order later, now we've got James Small aperture in all these areas, because once I explained to him, well, this $500 a pair speaker that's going in, it's a medium pizza. It's this big. He's like, "Oh, no, I don't want to see any of that stuff." That information didn't trickle down to the builder to then get to me. So we didn't exactly waste time. We ended up getting where we needed to go, but it took getting in front of the decision maker in order to get the right answer. So many times I'll simply ask, "Hey, can you connect me with the homeowner?" Right? Like, in a way that doesn't sound like we're trying to go around the general contractor, because many times our contract is with the GC. And in a lot of cases in this market, we don't even meet the homeowners ever. The GC may not even meet the homeowners, for that matter. It's kind of odd, but some of these super high net worth people, they just have a whole team of owner reps that really get the job done for them. And they may not want anyone to even know who they are for whatever reason. So sometimes it's very difficult to get to that decision maker. But yeah, that's the key. Really, really trying to get to that person. Some tricks to getting there. I mean, I usually say, listen, technology is super personal. The homeowner that lives in this residence, they're going to be touching this stuff every day. The keypads, the engravings on the keypads, whether or not they're backlit, how many of them there are. Of course, the touch panel interface, or what type of remote they're going to have. What's their TV watching experience going to be like? Let me find out. Like, at least, stakeholder, take these questions to the homeowners that's going to use the technology and ask them these questions. If you won't let me interface with them directly, okay, but these are still really critical questions to get answered. Like, please help me. And in some cases, they'll say, "You know what? This is going to be a lot of work. I don't want to be a go-between here. Here's an owner rep that you can talk to, or an executive assistant, or someone that can answer the question, that has the ear of the owner, or the actual owner themselves." So yeah, some of the ways that I get there.
Thanks for sharing that, Zach. Just a thought I have on there too is you could talk to that gatekeeper with all those points you brought up. Those are all great points and all extremely valid points, to say, have them fill out this. I don't have to, if they're holding you at arm's length, you can't see this client or talk to them. Please have them fill this out. It'll take them 10 minutes, and have them email it to you or email it to me, and then send me the results to that, right? So if they really want to keep this person that much in the past, then that's a reasonable ask, right? And And then what I would do to add on to that is have and I'm going to share these links in our chat here. We have a document that has some key tips on interfacing with architects, designers, and builders, like what's in it for them, right? So what's in it for you, gatekeeper, by responding to my request here? And that is, in the case what Zach was talking about, you can personalize it and less change orders, less project delays to get these things out. So we'll put that in here so you could grab it, and we'll edit these things into the recording of it as well. But here's the links to those tips. Got a question that came in from Chris Koziarski. Hey, Chris. Wanted if anybody is willing to share the elevator pitch or how they position HTA in when you're talking to either client or a trade partner.
I mean, we freestyle it every single time. It's different.
Yeah.
Every single time it's based on what our conversation is what the customer feels like. So we feel the vibe first. And then once we can feel that customer out, we know how we can start to, what pieces of this we can give them that they're going to really take in, and then what stats we can give them as we're talking to them about the HTA. So it's different every single time. It's never the same set of rules that we're reading off to a client. Every time it's a total freestyle, and it's totally different.
Yeah,
it just feels natural that way, and the customer doesn't feel like it's just this robotic thing that we're just spitting out to every single customer. If it's a natural conversation every single time, it's going to be different every single time, and that person's not going to feel like we're trying to pitch them with something.
That's a great point.
Yeah, go ahead, Zach.
No, I was just going to say, if to Constantinos' point, if you say the exact same thing every time, if you use the same pitch every time, it will start sounding just like something that yeah,
like
exactly. Yeah,
you call up.
Used car sales, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, what do I got to do to get you into this car today, bro? You don't ever want to sound like that. And the higher up the ladder you go with the level of quality in project and the sophistication of stakeholders that you're working with, the more that turns them off. So that kind of organic conversation, kind of off the cuff, is probably the best way to do it. I mean, if anyone is really interested in that elevator pitch, I would suggest just reach out to Jeff or Josh directly and say, hey, help me with this elevator pitch. Like, let's go through it. Just practice it a little bit, just practice it. Try it on, one of your friends or, one of your coworkers or something, and just do that little bit of kind of role play and just work it out. It's kind of uncomfortable to pitch your coworker. If you've never tried this, give the elevator pitch to a coworker. And if you're nervous doing that, you're not ready yet. Like, you've got to get past that, like that weird feeling, that kind of that acting, that if it feels uncomfortable to you, to your coworker, you're not going to be able to deliver that pitch accurately to a stakeholder that you're asking for, $100,000 or $500,000, right? So practice that pitch. And, don't stick to the exact same script every single time, but hit the bullet points and riff on it. To his point, that's going to make the stakeholder on the other side of the table comfortable and feel confident that you're not just, pitching them on, something real specific. You're hearing them. They've got to feel heard, and not feel like you're selling them something. It's got to just be a conversation. 100%.
Yeah, don't even think of it as a pitch. You know what I mean? Take that term out of your head. If it's thought of as a pitch, talk about it like as if it's like, I don't know, some concert you went to that you couldn't wait to tell somebody about, right? Talk about it as if it's like this, I don't know, movement that you want to talk about rather than like a pitch.
Yeah, make it part of the company DNA. And Chris, I sent a link in here, the Dropbox link that it's to everybody here. This is some sample wording of 2 different pitches. Just again, make it your own. Definitely what Zach and Constantino said here, make it your own. This is just sample language to use on how to differentiate yourself. And it's real key to do this at the early part of your project before you get into budgets. Lay that down, set that standard down that you're in this elite group and what it means. Once a client hears a few sentences on it, you set the table and you set that bar high. And any client that you want as a lifetime client is someone that you want that cares for quality. If they only care for the lowest price, you don't want them. Filter those people out, right? So if they don't resonate with that at all, then save your time, right? Because they're not gonna be a good client. Well, we've used up our time, and we thank you very much for the expertise and input of our panelists here. And there's one question, Abiola, we didn't get to. I could talk to you. I'm working with the designer. I can find an order. Maybe pricing is calculator ever wrong? I'll just say this real quick. The question is, has the calculator ever wrong? I would say from our feedback at HTA, it meets about 98% of the integrators' needs out there at the extreme high end and at the extreme low end, which we're not about low end, so we don't get that too much. It might not fit you, but try it. Run some of your past clients through it, like close jobs, and go through it, plug those numbers in, and show yourself, prove it to yourself that it meets my needs. You're like, yeah, this is lining up with exactly the last 3, 4, 5 projects that I've done. That's what many of integrators done, and I encourage you to do yourself so you have the confidence in doing that. But it's proven to be quite accurate. And we even give a little wiggle room if you play with it at the bottom. If you go to our site and you use it, it'll say on there, on all of it, it'll say, this is using a car analogy like an entry-level luxury car up to the top of the line. By saying that gives you a little wiggle room to, say, well, that's an entry-level luxury car. Could we go down a little bit than that? Yes. If you're okay with that, but you're going to start compromising aesthetics, performance, blah, blah, blah. But at least it kind of gives you wiggle room that this bottom dollar here is not ironclad in stone and you can't go below it, but try it out. So thank you, everybody. We will have a new slate. This is our last HTA webinar of 2025. We're going to have a slate for 2026 we're working on. We'll do a part 2 on this one at some point in the year. So keep an eye on your newsletters for the new slate of webinars. And if you have any questions in the meantime we didn't get to, you can reach out to myself, jc@htacertified.org. More than happy to answer anything that we didn't get to. So thank you, everybody.